Okay, moving from the bottom of Lamed Aleph Amud Beis onto Lamed Beis Amud Aleph. Amar Rebbe Elazar, 3 lines from the bottom. Amar Rebbe Elazar, Chana hiticha dvarim klape ma'ale. Chana literally threw words in the direction of above, which means she behaved impertinently, not respectfully, as it were, towards Hashem. Shneimar v'tispalel al Hashem, and she prayed, as it were, on Hashem, not to, but on, like almost coercing him. Melamed sheticha dvarim klape ma'ale. This teaches me that she shot words towards above, which is this expression of behaving in a way which is very chutzpahdik. And she wasn't the only one. Eliyahu also behaved in a chutzpahdik way to Hashem. At the classic epic moment at the Mount of Carmel, where Eliyahu Navi was demonstrating to the false prophets of the Baal that they are wrong and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in reality the true God, he says in his discourse, and you, Hashem, made their hearts go backwards. You turned their hearts backwards, meaning it was your fault that they were Oved Avodah Zarah, which is again a very strong chutzpahdik claim against Hashem. How do we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu went back and actually agreed to Eliyahu that Kiviyachol was his fault? Because it says in the prophet, later on in the prophet, in Micha, Dichtiv Asher Hari Oisi, that the Rashi quotes at the beginning of the pasuk, but essentially that I made them bad, I caused them to be bad. So we see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu agrees to Eliyahu Navi. This kind of dialogue and negotiation with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a very puzzling thing for us in terms of how does this inform us in our relationship to prayer. Since Chana, Eliyahu, these great prophets, we're going to see also Moshe Rabbeinu did do this. Does that mean we should follow suit, or does it mean no, the Gemara is critiquing them? I don't know. Let's wait and see, or let's wait and think. The Gemara begins on Lamed Beis Amud Aleph, the first Gemara on the page. Rabbi Chama Rabbi Chanina, Ilmole Shalosh Mikrois Halalu, would it not be for these 3 verses, Nismoitetu would have collapsed, Ragleim Shel Son Yisrael, the feet of the legs of the haters of Israel would have collapsed, and that is always a euphemistic term, well not always, but mostly a euphemistic term for the Jews themselves, because we do not want to say negative things about Jews. We call them the enemies of the Jews when we're referring to actual Jews themselves. So the Jews would have collapsed, would not be for these 3 verses. 1, Chad Diksiv Asher Oisi, the one that HaKadosh Baruch Hu admits that he made them do the bad things. V'chad, another one, the second one, Diksiv, Hinei Kechoyme B'yado Yosei Kenatem B'yadi, like clay in the hands of the potter, you are in my hand, meaning HaKadosh Baruch Hu had the ability to do and to fix them up, and Kiviyachol, he didn't. It's his fault, as it were. And the last of the 3 psukim is and I will remove from you that heart of stone from your flesh, and I will grant you a heart of flesh. So who is in charge of our movement forward? Not us, but Hashem, and therefore we lack culpability, and that's what allows us to keep on going and not collapse in the severity of punishment. Rav Papa Amar Mahacha, and Rav Papa is a 4th Mahalach. He brings out a 4th Mahalach, so he's adding on to it. Chama brought these 3 psukim. Rav Papa adds in his own 4th pasuk. And my spirit I will place within you, within your insides. And I will make it that in my statutes you will walk. So we see really our coming back to the Ba'alim is based on him and not on us. Or at least, so this of course is an extremely puzzling Gemara. But what do we do with the freedom of choice? The whole purpose of creation is that we should choose. And are we simply removing it at this point in time? Question mark, a big question mark for you to think about. Now, the next of the third examples of Yitiach Dvarim Klape Ma'ala, of behaving impertinently towards Hashem, V'amr Blaza, and this is the second Gemara on the page, V'amr Blaza, Moshe himself, our greatest prophet, Yitiach Dvarim Klape Ma'ala, Shnemar, V'yispalel Moshe El Hashem, just like Chala, Al Tikri El, don't read it El, which means to Hashem, Ela Al Hashem, but on top of Hashem, just like Chana. Shekain Devei Rebbe Lezer ben Yankov Kohen Alfin Ein Alfin, because in the school of Rebbe Lezer ben Yankov they said you can interchange the letters Aleph and Ayin, and therefore we can read this like we did by Chana, that Moshe Rabbeinu is davening on Hashem, almost compelling him to agree to him. Now that's going to be our first proof that Moshe Rabbeinu behaved impertinently towards Hashem. We're going to bring a series of other proofs to this effect, and the second one is going to be, and that's going to be the second part of the second Gemara on the page Lamed Beis. What's interesting is a lot of this page is going to be revolving around the sin of the golden calf, which happens to be in Shmos Perek Lamed Beis. So we've got Lamed Beis, which both spell heart, which is a nice memory technique if you want to remember when did these Gemaras occur, which is all about, do we have a heart, or does Hashem control our hearts? It's on page heart, and in chapter heart in Shmos. To Rabbi Yana Omri, so the second Mahalach in the second Gemara on the page is Rabbi Yana, the school of Rabbi Yana. They say Mehacha from here. V'dizav, it says in the pasuk in the beginning of Dvarim, and this place, it's meant to be a place, but really V'dizav means enough gold. What is the understanding? My V'dizav, what does it mean enough gold? Amid Rabbi Yana says, Rabbi Yana, the school of Rabbi Yana. This is actually what Moshe said to Hashem, Master of the universe, because of the gold and the silver and the gold that you influenced, that you gave to them, L'Yisrael, to the Jews, until they said, enough! Who garam she'asas ha'egel? That's what caused them to do the golden calf. So that's another way of Moshe Rabbeinu, as it were, behaving impertinently towards Hashem. Now, the next few Gemaras all revolve around the same theme, and they all describe different ways. Now, what's unclear about these Gemaras, are they all just paraphrasing Moshe's claim, or are they just describing what occurred? So let's go with them and see. The third is Amar Rebbe Yishaya Mashal Adam Shehoya Saloi Para Kechusha. This can be compared to a person that had a weak cow, very weak, underfed. Ubale Sevarim, and she was the mistress of limbs, which doesn't really help us. It means that her bones were sticking out. Thin, kind of emaciated cow. He'echila karshinin, and then the man fed her lupines. Now, of course, you know that. It's helpful to translate karshin to lupines, because you all know what lupines are. There's some kind of like legume that they eat a lot. I think they actually sell them in shops in Yerushalayim. They're like these funny, almost squarish beans, quite big. So beans, they're very good for animals apparently. So this man fed his cow karshin, and once the cow got fattened up and was looking strong and healthy, he started kicking him. Amar Allah, so he said to his cow, who's causing you to kick me? Kick me. It's because I fed you. So this is describing how people rebel when they are in a position of satiation and not in a position of need. And this is a kind of a continuation of the Dizav theme. You know what? I'm just going to go back because I think I skipped one. Ahmed Ve'Biyana, Ein Ari, I actually skipped one. I think. If I didn't, so this would be good chazorah. Amad Rabbi in Ari Noiheim. So if we go back, let's go back originally to the first statement of Rabbi Yana, that he was giving an alternative to Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov, who said, Aleph and Ayin are interchangeable, and therefore Moshe Rabbeinu prayed on Hashem compelling. And then we had Rabbi Yana Omar Mihacha V'Dizav Mai V'Dizav Amid Rabbi Yana Kachom Moshe V'Dan Kodesh Baruch Moshe Olam B'Shvil Kiz V'Zav Shishpat Leim L'Yisrael Ad She'amru Dai Gam She'asas Eiga. And then we have another Amid Rabbi Yana. Sorry, this is going to be the third. Amid Rabbi Yana Ein Ari Noyem. A lion doesn't roar mitoch kupa shel tevan after having consumed a big box of straw, because he probably wouldn't eat it. Ela mitoch kupa shel basar, rather from a big box of meat. In other words, when you're satiated, that's when you get the courage to rebel. And now this is the fourth mahalach. Amrei b'shayim mashal adam shayisile parka chusha balasev armei chilek karshini v'oisem mevetes boy amar la migaram lech shetem mevetes bi elo karshin she'echaltich. Another example of over satiation causes rebellion. 5. Amrei b'chia bar'aba amrei b'yuchin mashal adam echad shehayel ben. It's comparable to there was a man who had a child, he had a son. He washed him and he put on all ointments and creams so his skin was luxurious and geschmack. And then he fed him so he was feeling satiated and looked good. Vishkar, and he gave him what to drink. In other words, he was in the perfect state. He was properly kiss al tzavore, and then he hung upon his wallet on his neck with loads of cash. And then he put him in front of a opening of prostitutes. What could do this son and not do sin? Meaning you've set him up for disaster. You've given him everything he needs to do the sin. What do you expect of him? The 6th is Omar Rav Acha Bereid Rav Huna Omar Rav Sheshes Hand Amar Inshi, and this is what people say. Molekre, say fill up your stomach. Zane Bishe is all kinds of bad sins. Meaning that the actual act of overindulgence in its own right will cause really reproachable behavior. Shneimar kamar isam, when they fed them, v'yispa'u saveru, and they got completely satiated. V'yoram libam al kain shechechuni, and their hearts were lifted up, and that's why they forgot about me. Rav Nachman in part 7 Omar v'ram levavcha mihacha. From here, v'ram levavcha, and your heart will become haughty, v'shochachtes Hashem, and then you will forget Hashem. V'rabanan, and this is in part 8, Amri mehacha v'achal v'soveya v'darshen, and you will eat and you'll be satiated and you will feel good. Ufan, and then you will turn to false God. And now we have in part 9, they will become fat, Yeshurun, another name for the Jews, Vayivat, and they will kick Hashem. So that's all basically 9 versions of we're not the problem, because we really are expected to behave badly when we're overfed. Which again brings us into this whole notion of, well, don't we daven for the bounty of Hashem? Don't we want the bounty of Hashem? But it seems over here that the bounty of Hashem is the cause for us to become completely spiritually disengaged. And it's something to think about in our modern context, where there's such a proliferation of wealth. How is it affecting our avodas Hashem? And where does our freedom of choice lie in regard to this? Is it better to be poor and pious, or rich and religious? Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, and this is a sum up and going back to the original part of the Gemara. That even though Moshe Rabbeinu was behaving impertinently, great word, towards Hashem, nevertheless, Amar Rabbi Yonis, the Minayin Shechazar Kodesh Baruch Hu, V'hoide Loi Moshe, actually Kodesh Baruch Hu went back and agreed to Moshe that he was right. Shneimar V'kesef Yirbeisi Lohem, and this is the Navi Yeshaya, that I increased to them, I gave them lots of money, V'zav Asu LaBaal, and they made this money, this gold, they did it for the Baal, who's an idol. So as it were, HaKadosh Baruch Hu admits that because he gave them so much goodness, that's why they went off the derech. And now we're on to the 3rd Gemara on the page. First Gemara was those psukim which exonerated us. The 2nd Gemara was Moshe Rabbeinu bin hitich klapei dvarim klapei ma'al, which is actually very much related. And now the 3rd Gemara is V'daber Hashem El Moshe Lech Reid. So this is whilst the Jews were doing the sin of the golden calf, and Moshe Rabbeinu was on Har Sinai, unaware of what was going on down at the foot of the mountain, Hashem immediately says to Moshe Rabbeinu, "Go down, Lech Reid, go down." So the Gemara asks, "My Lech Reid? Why does it need to say both? It can just say Lech. Amar Rebbe Lazar answers the Gemara in part 2. Amar Rebbe Lazar, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu LaMoshe, says Rebbe Lazar, Moshe, Amar Moshe, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe, Moshe, Reid migudlascha, come down from your greatness, from your leadership, from your role. Klum nosaiti l'chol gedula, the only reason I gave you this greatness, elo b'shvil Yisrael, was for the Jewish people, so that you could assist them, help them, uplift them, lead them, guide them to the right path. V'achshav Yisrael chatu, but now the Jews, they've gone of the derech, they've done a chet, they've become misaligned, they've done a sin. And then the Bach changes this to Lama l'chol gedula, why is there to you this greatness? When this was said to Moshe Rabbeinu, miyad tashash koichoi shel Moshe v'lo haya lo koyach ledaber, immediately weakened was the strength of Moses, and he had no power to speak. V'kiven she'amar, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu said these magical words, which changed everything around and redirected the course of history. Hashem said to Moshe, Heref mimeni v'ash midaim. Let go of me, and I will destroy them. Amar Moshe, davar zeh talui bi. From the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe, let go of me and I will destroy them, implying, if you don't let go of me, I can't destroy them. Moshe recognizes his responsibility. It's dependent on me. Miyad, Amad, V'nis Chazek B'tfilah. He forgot about his inability to speak, and he stood up and he strengthened himself in prayer, Bikesh Rachamim, and he requested mercy. Mashal Melech, this can be compared to Melech Basav Adam, the Bach adds in, Shekras al Benoi, they got angry with his son. And he gave him a mighty blow. And the king's friend, his well-wisher, was sitting next to him. And this friend of the king was reluctant to say anything to the king. But the king was aware of the presence of his friend, and he said, would it not be for this dear friend that was sitting in front of me? I would have killed you, my son. When the friend heard the king speaking to his son in this way, he recognized that his presence was significant. So he stood up and he rescued the son from the king's hands. So too did Moshe Rabbeinu, moving into the fourth Gemara on the page, going a little bit further, exploring this very dramatic time in Jewish history when the nation was threatened extinction, and Moshe Rabbeinu stepped up and saved us. V'ato hanichali v'yicha api bohem v'achaleim v'aseh oischa l'goy gadol. Kodesh Baruch Hu says to Moshe, and now, leave me, and I will increase, I will fire up my anger against them, and I will destroy them, and I will make you into a great nation. Amar Rabbi Avohu, Ilmale Mikra Kosov would not be for the fact that this verse was written. It would be impossible to say. What does it mean? It means it teaches us that Moshe grabbed onto Hashem like a person grabs onto his friend. But Bigdo with his cloak, Master of the universe, I will not let go of you until you forgive and you atone for them. And that's how Moshe Rabbeinu saved us. So we go back to that phrase in the previous pasuk that Hashem said, I will destroy them and I will make you into a great nation. What kind of claims did Moshe Rabbeinu come towards Hashem with? So Moshe applied to Hashem's promise to make him into a great nation in the following way. Master of the universe, if this chair of three legs cannot stand, meaning the chair being the Jewish people, the three legs being the three forefathers who are the basis and the foundation of our nation, and you're saying that they don't last even though they've got solid foundations, So then, can't stand in front of you when you're angry. A one-legged chair, could that stand in front of you? How much more so it could not. And therefore, how can you destroy them and build from me? It won't last. And not only that, but even more compelling. It would be incredibly embarrassing for me, from my forefathers. They'll say, look, what do they say? Look at the leader that Hashem put upon the Jewish people. What did he do? He was just looking for greatness for himself. He didn't plead for their mercy. And therefore, Hashem, please have mercy on your people. Which is interesting. It seems the more compelling claim is the latter claim, which is really Moshe Rabbeinu asking Hashem to have mercy for him, that he doesn't have to be embarrassed in the face of his fathers. And now the Gemara is going to explain that how more in depth this prayer of Moshe as it goes on in the Psukim, and it uses a language which becomes extremely open to multiple interpretations, and that language is V'yachel. V'yachel Moshe es pnei Hashem. So this word V'yachel, we're not quite sure what it means. He did this. He was Yachel Pnei Hashem, to the face of Hashem. So what was that? So let's go for the first pshat. I'm not going to go with the Bach over here. I'm going to go with what's stated in our Gemara. Amar Rebbe Lazar, B'lamed she'amad Moshe b'tfilah lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It teaches us that Moshe Rabbeinu stood in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu ad shehachelehu, until he the word achalei, Rashi says, is hifzibra, that he was open to accepting his prayers. That's v'yachel. He went so far that he actually got to the point where Hashem was willing to forgive him. Pshat number one. Pshat number two. V'rava amar ad shehitir lo, the change on the side, shehitir lo nidroi, until Moshe Rabbeinu undid Hashem's vow. Because Hashem said, "V'achalem, I will destroy them," and this word "v'yachel" teaches me that Hashem, like if you make a vow and you regret the vow that you made, then you can go to a wise man and he can find a way of undoing it. So it's kiviyachol. Moshe Rabbeinu undid Hashem's vow. Crazy idea. Ksiv hacha v'yachel, ksiv hasam lo yachal dvar. It says in regard to Moshe Rabbeinu v'yachel, and says in regard to oaths, you should not desecrate your word. And from this we make a diuk. A person himself cannot annul his own vow, but others can annul a vow for him. So Moshe Rabbeinu annulled Hashem's vow. That's the second pshat in V'yachel. Shmuel says the third pshat. It teaches us that he gave himself over to die. Because Moshe Rabbeinu says to Hashem, and if you do not want to save them, so then delete me from your book. Take me out, meaning take my life away from me, which is from the word halal, that means a corpse. The fourth pshat is Omar Rava, so there's a change. They take out the Omar Rava and says Omar V'yitzchak, B'lamed shehichla aleim midas rachmim. Moshe Rabbeinu caused to fall upon them the attribute of mercy. And the fifth pshat is Rabbon Armi Melamed she'Omar Moshe lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Rebbeinu shel Olam, Master of the universe. Chulin hu lecha me'asos k'davar zeh. It is a desecration. It's mundane. It's not appropriate for you to do this thing, and that's the lashon of v'yachel. And those are five pshatim on the nature of the prayer, which is derived from the usage of the language v'yachel. Beautiful to see the Torah Ba'al Peh and the Torah B'Ksav cooperating to give us deeper insight into our history, into the reality of the world, and into the Torah HaKadosha. Very, very, very power. Now, the Gemara continues, and actual sixth pshat. V'yachel Moshe es pnei Hashem. Tanya Reb Lezer Gadol Omer. I don't know why the Gemara is like starting from fresh. I don't know, it just continued. So anyway, maybe that's, I don't know. Reb Lezer teaches us, Gadol teaches us, Bryce Melamed she'omad Moshe betfilah lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu ad she'achaztoi achilu. So Moshe Rabbeinu stood in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu until he grasped him. Achilu is we're going to see a sickness of sorts. Ma achilu, the Gemara says, what is that? Achilu. Amar Blaza eish shel atzamos, the fire of the bones, meaning a very crazy kind of fever. And the Gemara says, and what does it mean, the fire of the bones? Which means Aramaic for the fire of the bones. I'm not quite sure what Abai gained over here. I imagine there's something to do with maybe there was a common phrase of how people refer to this disease in Aramaic. And now we're starting a conclusion of this Gemara. Zechor le'Avram Yitzchak le'Yisrael avadecha asher nishbata lohem bach. So now, Moshe Rabbeinu, in a continuation of his prayer, he says, remember the forefathers of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, that you swore to them in you. My bach, what does it mean in you? Amar Belaza, Amar Moshe Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ribaynai Shel Olam, Master of the Universe, Ilmalei Nishbat Olem B'Shamayim U'V'Aretz. If you would have davened, if you would have made the oath, and you would have sworn by the heavens and the earth, I could have said, okay, Kashem Shishamayim U'V'Aretz B'Teilim, Kach Shavuoscha B'Teilim. Just like the heavens and earth ultimately will come to an end, the world will be destroyed, so too your shvur can be destroyed, your oath can be destroyed. V'achshav, what about now? Shnishbat Olem B'Shimcha HaGadol, that you swore by your great name. Ma Shimcha HaGadol Chai V'Kayim L'Olam Ul'ol Me'olamim, just like your great name is alive and sustained forever and ever and ever. Kach Shvuoscha Kayemes L'Olam Ul'ol Me'olamim. So to your oath stands forever and forever and forever. Next Gemara, V'tadaber Aleim Arbe Zarchem K'Koich V'Shamayim. Now, and now Moshe continues, and you spoke to them, see, Moshe Rabbeinu speaking to Hashem, and you spoke to them, and you said to them, I will make many your seed like the stars of the heaven, and this land that I said I will give to your children, to your children. So it seems like it's Moshe Rabbeinu speaking, but when he says, and this land that I said I will give to you, so why is he saying that he's giving the land? Said, and the land that you said that you're going to give to the Jewish people. So how do you reconcile this seeming craziness in the pasuk? So Reb Lazar says the first approach is you actually have to read the verse in the following way. Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, and you spoke to them and you said, I will increase your seed like the heavens, the stars of the heaven, full stop. Now Hashem replies, do you know what? You're right. And the land that I said I will give to you, I will give to you. In other words, now the dialogue switches, now it is Hashem speaking. That's the first pshat, and that's from Rebbe Lazar. Shmuel bar Nachmani Omar Elu ve'elu divrei Talmud. No, it's all Moshe Rabbeinu speaking. So how do you answer up this quizzical statement of Omarti? This is what Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem. The things that you said to me, meaning Rashi points out the things that you told me at the burning bush, that I'm going to go and save the Jewish people and bring them back to the land of Israel via this mountain. The things that you said to me to go and tell the Jewish people in my name, holachti, I went, and I said to them in your name. Now what am I going to say to them? What can I say to them if you don't get them through this troubled time? So already therefore you read the pasuk as follows: V'tadaber aleim arbes za'archem k'chayv reshmaim v'chol haaretz hazois, and all this land asher omarti, that I said to the Jewish people that you said. So V'chol haaretz hazois asher amarti etin l'zarachem, and all the land that I said to them that you said that you would give to them, and that's Moshe Rabbeinu's claim against Hashem. Continues the Gemara, Mi bilti yechodes Hashem. So now, this is going away from the Chet HaEgel of the golden calf sin and over to the sin of the spies. And again, Moshe Rabbeinu we meet him at the point where he's bargaining for the lives of the Jewish people, negotiating with Hashem to save them. This time again, they're under the threat of being destroyed because the spies give this really negative report of the land of Israel, and Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people, are hanging in the balance, and Moshe Rabbeinu comes and he again has to defend the Jewish people against Hashem, and he says, well, if you destroy the Jewish people now, the non-Jewish nations of the world are going to look at you and going to say, you're not able to do it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not strong enough. And it says the words, Bilti Yecholes Hashem, which was not within the ability of Hashem. So the Gemara says, it doesn't mean Biti Yachol, that Hashem is unable in the masculine form. It uses a feminine noun. Yachol. Yochel Hashem Yivoilech should already have said the masculine verb. In order to understand why they switched, we have the teachings of Rebbe Lazar that said Moshe said in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Master of the universe. What are the nations of the world? Now the nations of the world will say, Toshash Koichoi Kenekeva has become weak the strength of Hashem, like a female. Ve'ein Yochel Hatzil, and he's unable to save the Jewish people. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu replied to Moshe and he said, but 1 second, they won't say that because they've seen the miracles and the powers that I've done for them at the sea. Amar Lefanov, Moshe Rabbeinu said back to Hashem, yeah, but that's say back, Kshua, beating Parai, who's only a single king, that God was strong enough to do. But to beat 31 kings that ruled the land of Canaan, he can't do that. And therefore, this was a winning claim that Moshe Rabbeinu got through to save the Jewish people. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, second part of Sugya, how do you know that actually HaKadosh Baruch Hu reneged? He went back and he agreed to Moshe. I have forgiven them like your words. I understand, you're right. Like your words, the nations like your words in the future, the nations of the world will say that. Happy is the student whose master, his teacher, agrees to him. So in other words, Kidvarecha, it's almost as if HaKadosh Baruch Hu agrees to the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu's justification is a legitimate justification. V'ulam chayani, and the Gemara continues chayani, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu continues and he says, I am alive. Amar Rav Amar Bitzchok Yishma Amar Rav Amar Bitzchok Melamed Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu LaMoshe Moshe Hechisani Bidvarecha. This when Hashem says chayani, which really in the context it appears to be an oath, over here Rav in the name of Bitzchok says it is actually HaKadosh Baruch Hu saying back to Moshe, you have revived me, you have given me life with your words. In other words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants nothing more than Klal Yisrael to be safe and sound. Dorash Rebbe Simloi. Darshans Rebbe Simloi. L'olam Yisrael Adam Shivchosh LaKadosh Baruch Hu v'achar kach yispalel. First of all, a person should organize the praise of Hashem, and then he should beseech him and pray for what he needs. Min alon. Part 2 is a question. Where does this come from? Part 3 is an answer. Mi Moshe Tiksiv V'eschanan El Hashem Be'ez Ahi. Moshe Rabbeinu supplicated. He offered up his prayers in front of Hashem. Uksiv Hashem Elokim. How does it begin? Hashem, God. You have begun to show your servant your greatness and your mighty hand. That there is no one like you as a God in the heavens and in the earth. That you have done your actions and your mighty deeds. Uksiv Basrei. And it says afterwards, then Moshe Rabbeinu makes his claim that he wants to go into Eretz Yisrael, and therefore you see that the way it should work is that you first have to present your argument, as it were, your claims to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then afterwards you can first you have to present the praises of Hashem, and then afterwards you can make your request. This is an extremely difficult Gemara to understand with all the complexities, bringing to the fore both how should the nature of a prayer be, should it be a negotiation, can we use this as a strategy in our prayers, and also how far does our freedom of choice extend. So these are perplexing ideas, definitely amazing that we've opened them up, and even more amazing that you can explore them further. Be very good and strong.